With the new year approaching, or basically any time of the year, habits are a really good aspect to incorporate within your life because it actually helps you go out and do that stuff that you actually want to do. And with 2022 approaching, I'm going to go over some different habits that you could implement or throughout the year. It doesn't just have to be at the beginning of the year. You can start implementing them whenever, but typically at the start of the year, people like to start implementing new habits or goals. So I'm going to go over some different habits that I think would be really beneficial to incorporate within your life to help lead you to a healthier, happier lifestyle. Like with most things that we try and start and do, starting's often the hardest part where we don't end up sticking with it through long enough to see it become a habit, and we just end up losing motivation and we don't stick through with it. So I often say start small and then slowly build up from there. You got to raise your standards to maybe you want to work out, and that kind of leads me into the first one, which is exercising to help lead a healthier lifestyle. So you can go to the gym, or you can just go outside, go for a walk or a run or a hike or a bike or a rollerblade, or just do something at home where you could just do body weight stuff, or maybe you could buy a pull-up bar. So there's several different ways that you could go about it, and just starting out small and raising your standards where maybe you want to go for a walk. Just say once a week I'll go for a walk, and it's just raising your standards to where I have to go for a walk once a week, or maybe it's going to the gym. I have to go to the gym at least once a week, and then once you're able to get that down, maybe you add to it, and then you go twice a week, and then you make it so this is the bare minimum that I have to do. I can go more, but sometimes often when you end up going more, you might end up burning yourself out and you don't end up sticking through with it long enough. So whether it's with exercising or a different habit that you're trying to implement, try and start small, raise your standard to that's the minimum that I have to do, and then start building up from there. The next one that I've adapted over the past couple of years, where it originally started out as just doing it every now and then slowly over the past year and a half, it's become a daily thing for me, and that's journaling, where you just at the end of the day or at the start of the day, whenever you find works for you, I just do at the end of the day, and I just kind of go over the day of what went well, what went bad, and just areas that I could just touch upon where what made me happy, what made me sad, and then just kind of just reflect on the day. And then this is just another great way to track your progress. So if you are starting a business, or you're starting working out, or trying to implement one of these habits, it's just a good way to reflect back on how far you've actually come. And it's just a good way to see all your progress that you are making, because sometimes you might get caught up and not see that progress, because when we're say you might be working out every single day and you're trying to lose weight, when you look at yourself in the mirror every single day, you're not going to see that progression over a year. But when you reflect back on it and you see all your reflections, you're able to see that progress that you made all throughout the year. So that's just one thing that I've really enjoyed doing, is journaling. And I think that's a good way to just reflect and see your progress that you are actually taking, because sometimes it might get lost. Moving on to the next one, being eating healthier and drinking more water. And there's several different ways that you can go about this, whether it's just eating more fruits and veggies, eating less fast food, eating less sugars and preservatives. And I think a big aspect of this is trying to meal prep a little bit, or just having your food in the fridge, where you might come home from a late night and it might already be ready. And I've had this in the past where I would go into the office, and then when I'm driving home, there's a couple fast food places right next to where I live. So it's just really tempting to just go there, stop and pick it up, instead of just going home and having to make your food. It's just a lot easier to have your food meal prepped and ready, so you can just come home, throw it in, say, the toaster oven for 10 minutes, and then you're all set. You got your dinner. And I think it's just a good way to avoid eating out. And fast food's just so convenient, and it's not very expensive depending on where you go. So as tempting as fast food can be, you want to try to avoid it as much as possible and eat in as much as possible, where you cook your own food and try and eat healthier that way. So that's just one way that I found works for me, where I just kind of meal prep throughout the week, and then it's just a lot easier. And then maybe you only have like 10 minutes of prep and cook time, and then dishes kind of suck, but just got to suck it up a little bit, and those benefits will help you out down the road. And then it's obviously just drinking more water throughout the day. Instead of maybe having a pop, you just drink a water. So just try and cut out those unhealthy foods as much as possible and drink a little bit more water. In this next one, I'm still struggling with myself. It's reading more and scrolling less. And as a population, we're just spending countless amounts of hours on our phones and on the internet. And I think instead of just going on social media or just spending countless hours on our phone or on the internet, it's putting that down for a little bit, say 30 minutes, and going picking up a book and reading that instead. And I think this can have a significant impact on our future if you're, say, picking up a self-help book or a personal development book where you're kind of preparing yourself for the future and thinking ahead and setting goals where this is going to help you out in the future. But there are other options, and I think it's just better to pick up a book instead of being on our phone and on our screen so much, because we spend just so much time on our phones. So I think just putting our phones and being offline for a little bit can just help benefit us a little bit more. And this next one just kind of plays into the previous one, where it's just spending less time on our phones, just putting it down, especially when we're with friends or family and we're hanging out with them. Try and be present in that moment, being with them, talking to them, and actually being with them instead of just being on your phone and being in the room, but not mentally there because you're off looking on your phone and you're not really paying attention to them or just being there with them. So putting your phone down, finding something else to do instead of that. Maybe it's going to exercise or going for a walk or just reading a book, whatever it may be. It's just trying to find that replacement and just being on our phones less. And I know this is something that I'm trying to implement right now, where I just spend less time on my phone because I feel like my screen time's going up a little bit. So I'm trying to minimize that as much as possible. I tried doing this one for 30 days, so if you haven't watched that video, you can check it out. But just doing nothing, setting aside some time to just sit down and do nothing and just maybe meditate or just sit there and stare at the ceiling, where it's just being offline and just kind of being with yourself and being present in the moment, to try and just slow down, because we live in this world that we're just constantly going and we rarely have time to just stop and do nothing. And where you'll often hear, oh, I don't have time to do this or I don't have time to do that, because we're just constantly going and we feel like if we don't have anything to do, we're doing something wrong. And I've had this kind of in the past where I feel like I'm not doing anything and I'm doing something wrong. But going back and just doing nothing, this is just a good way to reset our minds, relax a little bit, and try and catch up, because we're just constantly going. And you can do this however you want, whether it's just meditating or sitting there and doing nothing, because we're just constantly going. So just taking a few minutes out of our day to just sit there and do nothing and relax and catch up on ourselves. And a way to help you out financially is just saving more and spending less. The easiest way to save more is just to spend less. We often find ourselves spending money on a lot of stuff that we don't actually need. We just kind of maybe impulse buy something and then it ends up sitting there on the shelf for who knows how long, and we never end up actually getting use out of it. So it's more so spending money on stuff that we actually need, spending it on experiences. I'm all about that, where you can just spend it on an experience, go out and create some memories, because you may never be able to do that again. And I think that's a great way to spend your money, instead of stuff that we don't actually need that just ends up sitting on the shelf collecting dust. Especially after this pandemic, it's caused a lot of uncertainty and you never really know what's about to happen next. So if you're able to have some money saved up just in case for those uncertain times, it's always good to just have that there so you can feel a little bit more safe when you go to sleep at night. And then moving on to the last one, it's just learning or doing or trying something new. Stop telling yourself that you can't do this or you can't do that. You're just going out there and actually doing it. Failure might be a part of the process, but it's only a failure if you don't learn from it. So make sure if there is a failure, just end up learning from it, and then you can just adjust it later down the road. So it's not actually a failure, it's just a learning process in the whole grand scheme of things. So go out there and do something new that you've always wanted to do, and don't limit yourself. With the new year approaching, there's a lot of different habits that you can implement within your life, and these are just some of the different ones that I thought were really good that could be beneficial to you. So I'm not sure if you will implement any of these. Maybe you already have some that you're going to be trying to implement. If you are, leave them down in the comments below. I'd be really interested to hear what habits you're trying to implement going into the new year, or maybe it's in the middle of the year and you're just trying to start right now, and I think that's awesome. So if you have any that you want to share below in the comments, I'd be excited to hear about those. And as always, thanks for watching, and let's level up.